Good day, grade 9 learners! Our first lesson is about transport of nutrients in the respiratory and circulatory system. This lesson is very important, especially in this time of pandemic, because what is affected by the virus are the main organs of respiratory and circulatory system. This lesson will provide you information on how respiratory and circulatory system work together to transport nutrients, gases, and other molecules to and from the different parts of the body. This milk or most essential learning competencies covers 2 weeks lesson. When you eat foods, you are actually using the chemical energy that fuels your body to do various activities. It gives us energy to keep us going for the whole day. It enables us to focus on our studies and so on. But the question is, how are these nutrients, gases, other fluids, and molecules transported in our body? For this week, we will focus only on the respiratory system. Here, you will first identify the parts of the human respiratory system and describe the function of each part. Second, explain how the movement of diaphragm helps the air go in and out of the lungs. And third, cite preventive measures on how to take good care of the respiratory system during pandemic. Before we continue, let us release some tensions in our body. Let's do inhale and exhale. Ready? Inhale, exhale. One more. Inhale, exhale. Last one. Inhale, exhale. There are 2 organs responsible to allow the exchange of gases when doing strenuous activities. These are respiratory system and circulatory system. Nowadays, in the time of pandemic, if a person is experiencing symptoms like fever and tiredness, continuous cough, and has a hard time breathing, there is a necessary measure to keep oneself away from the suspicion of having an acquired virus that weakens the respiratory system. This can be explained by the interaction of respiratory and circulatory system if the virus gets in the body. How is it possible? Let's find out. When the respiratory system is mentioned, people generally think of breathing. But breathing is only one of many activities of the respiratory system. Because respiratory system is a series of organs responsible for taking in oxygen and expelling carbon dioxide. It is a system responsible for supplying oxygen to the body and removing carbon dioxide. Its primary organs are lungs, which carry out this exchange of gases as we breathe. The reason why we can breathe is because of the respiratory system. Let us look at the diagram and familiarize ourselves with the different parts of the respiratory system. As we breathe, oxygen enters to our nose or mouth. For the upper part of the respiratory system, we have the nose and the mouth as the entrance of oxygen in our body. This air will pass through nasal cavity or nasal passageways, making the air warm, damp, and clean of unknown particles. Pharynx or throat and larynx, or also known as the voice box, are the accessory organs that serves as the passageway of air down to trachea and lungs. The part or the lower part of the respiratory system includes the trachea, which is also known as the windpipe. The trachea serves as the main passageway of air into the lungs. The lungs is the main organ of the respiratory system. It is connected externally in the bronchi. The bronchi are the two branching tubes that connect the trachea to the lungs. In the bronchi, there are bronchioles. These bronchioles are hair-like tubes that connect to the alveoli or air sacs. In alveoli, the gas exchange happens. The diaphragm is the part that controls our breathing. Now, can you name all of them again? Would that exercise can be breathtaking to you? How about making it heart-pounding by participating in this minute-to-answer-it activity? So parts and function of the respiratory system will be flashed on the screen. And you should be ready to answer it by choosing the right word for each number. Are you ready? Here it is. Number 1. Ready? Read it to name it. time is up. Did you have a minute to answer it? Congrats yourself for keeping up this activity. Now that when it comes to challenges, the grade 9 students don't decline. Do you know what happens when we breathe in? Pay attention and look closely to the animated figure. Focus on the movement of the ribs, lungs, and diaphragm as it does inhale, exhale, and rest. Now, let us describe. During inhalation, the air moves in or the oxygen enters our body. The rib cage moves out and lungs expand, or chest space increases. Do you see the dome-shaped muscle below the lungs? It is called diaphragm, and it controls the process of respiration. When you breathe in or inhale, the diaphragm muscle contracts or it moves down. Do you know what happens when we breathe out? Well, during exhalation or when we exhale, the air moves out or carbon dioxide exits our body. The rib cage contracts and our lungs compress while the chest space decreases. The dome-shaped muscle just below the lungs or the diaphragm relaxes or moves up as we exhale. Pay attention to this 6 minutes video to have more ideas on how do the lungs work as it does the process of breathing. Get ready with your paper and pen to take down notes.
Respiratory system. To understand the process of breathing. In humans, the main organs responsible for respiration are present in the thoracic cavity. In the thorax region, the rib cage and a dome-shaped fibrous tissue known as the diaphragm are observed. Present within the rib cage are the pleural membranes, which enclose the lungs. The right lung is divided into 3 lobes: the right superior, right middle, and the right inferior lobe. The left lung is smaller and has only 2 lobes, the left superior and the left inferior lobe. Both the lungs are associated externally with small tubular bronchi, which unite and extend into the trachea. The trachea has incomplete C-shaped rings of cartilage, which prevent the tracheal wall from collapsing. The trachea leads into the pharynx, which is connected to the nostrils. As we breathe in air, the oxygen molecules enter the nostrils and travel downwards through the pharynx and trachea to finally reach the bronchi. From each bronchus, oxygen travels into the lungs. Within the lungs, the bronchus divides repeatedly to form bronchioles. Oxygen travels through these bronchioles and reaches the alveoli, each of which is surrounded by a network of capillaries. A section of one alveolus shows the presence of numerous alveolar chambers with pores. Blood containing RBCs is seen flowing through the capillaries. The oxygen molecules from the alveolus diffuse into the capillary and then get absorbed by the bluish-purple RBCs. This causes oxygenation of the RBCs, and a transition in their color from bluish-purple to red is observed. The blood moving into the alveolus contains RBCs and carbon dioxide molecules. These molecules are released into the alveolus. The carbon dioxide collects in the alveolar chamber. and then from the alveolus it travels through the bronchioles, into the bronchus, which finally reaches the trachea, and is breathed out through the nostrils. So the process of breathing in air rich in oxygen is called inhalation. After the contraction of the muscular diaphragm, the lungs expand, and the air rushes in, resulting in the inflation of the alveoli. During exhalation, the diaphragm moves up and the lungs contract. Thus, the alveoli deflate, causing the air to be forced out. This exhaled air is rich in carbon dioxide. This process of inhalation and exhalation is known as respiration, which is approximately 20 times per minute. Summary. In the thorax region, the rib cage and the diaphragm are observed, which play a vital role in respiration. Present within the rib cage are the pleural membranes, which enclose the lungs. The right lung consists of 3 lobes, while the left lung has only 2 lobes. Both the lungs are associated externally with bronchi, which unite and extend into the trachea. As we breathe, the oxygen molecules enter the nostrils and travel downwards, through the pharynx and trachea, to finally reach the bronchi. From each bronchus, oxygen travels into the lungs. Within the lungs, the bronchus divides repeatedly to form bronchioles. Oxygen travels through these bronchioles and reaches the alveoli, each of which is surrounded by a network of capillaries. As blood flows through the capillaries, the oxygen molecules from the alveolus diffuse into the capillary. This causes oxygenation of the RBCs. The carbon dioxide molecules are released into the alveolus. They are collected in the alveolar chamber, and then from the alveolus, it travels through the bronchioles. Into the bronchus, which finally reaches the trachea and is breathed out through the nostrils.
Alright, I hope you learn a lot from this short clip. It's so amazing how do lungs work voluntarily. And we must do our part to take good care of it. If you are experiencing symptoms like cough and cold, fever, sore throat, and has a hard time breathing, you are suspicious of having infected with the coronavirus that weakens the respiratory system. How does COVID-19 affect our lungs? In ARDS, or Acute Respiratory Distress Syndrome, the alveoli is filled with fluid which reduces the lungs' ability to provide vital organs with enough oxygen. ARDS entails severe inflammation of lungs, but the main problem is that it makes portions of lungs unusable. Dr. Ferrante explains, it can be very serious, and many of these patients will need to be on a ventilator. During this unprecedented time, it is important not only to stay at home and work safely whenever and wherever possible. It is also critically important to keep your lungs and immune system healthy to improve your body's ability to fight off infection or illness. We know that the virus that causes COVID-19 disease obstructs respiratory pathways with very thick mucus. In order to actively fight off any viral infection, the best offense is healthy lungs. Aside from wearing face masks and observing physical distancing, here are some proactive steps you can take to optimize your pulmonary health. Hydration, diet, exercise, don't smoke, get flu vaccine, and frequent hand washing. All of these steps are ones that you can take today and every day to keep your lungs and your body healthy. Let us now summarize the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the respiratory system. After the contraction of muscular diaphragm, the lungs expand and the oxygen-rich air from the environment will enter nasal cavities, making the air warm, damp, and clean of unknown particles. The inhaled air will pass through pharynx and larynx, down to trachea or windpipe, which serve as the main passageway of oxygen into the lungs. The bronchi are the two branching tubes that connect trachea to the lungs. From the bronchus, the oxygen will travel to the bronchioles or hair-like tubes that connects to the alveoli, where the gas exchange happens. During exhalation, the diaphragm moves up, causing the alveoli to deflate and forcing carbon dioxide to expel, which passes through the bronchioles, then bronchi, then to the trachea, larynx, pharynx, and finally to the nasal cavity again to release carbon dioxide-rich air to the environment. For the learning task this week, you will do learning task 1. Study the diagram of the human respiratory system. Copy the diagram and label the parts correctly. Choose from the listed words on the box. For learning task 2 entitled Inhale and Exhale, copy the table provided. Place a check mark in the box where you think the statement belongs. Grade 9 learners, are there any questions? If none, thank you for participating in our lesson. See you again next week. Goodbye!